The concept that maybe, like, we think to be the best at something, you have to be really almost superhumanly focused on one thing. And in some cases that works, but in a lot of cases, just having that sort of willingness to try and jump and do things and risk and try a lot of different things can form abilities and skills and kind of outlooks that actually really lend itself to being super successful.
Welcome to Black Belt Beauty Radio, a podcast fueled by a passion to support your journey in developing your most beautiful and optimal performance in life. Each episode is driven with the intention to elevate your mind. When we elevate our mind, we elevate our life. So get ready. It's time to rise. Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome back to Black Belt Beauty Radio. Today's episode is with my friend Ashleigh Van Houten. Ashleigh is a badass Renaissance woman in the health and fitness space, you guys. And just to note, this conversation, normally when I bring somebody onto the podcast for the first time, it's a real profile on them, where it's all about them. But this is actually going up on a podcast that she hosts as well, Paleo Magazine Podcast. So it's more of just a conversation between two girlfriends that are excited to be connected and getting to know each other more. We get into some deep dive conversations around, our backstories, both of our backstories, and good talks in health and fitness. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background about her, but just wanted to note that. So it is a little bit different this time around, but it's so much fun. So Ashleigh is a very talented writer. She writes for Paleo Magazine. And like I mentioned, she is the podcast host to the Paleo Magazine Podcast. She's also a contributing co-host to the Muscle Intelligence Podcast with renowned bodybuilder Ben Pakulski. She's a lifelong athlete who has put solid sweat equity into CrossFit, powerlifting, Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, and has been a winning competitor in the sport of bodybuilding. She's a beautiful example of someone who is very curious in furthering the constant discovery of what she is capable of in her life. Most recently, Ashleigh has added event creator to her epic repertoire with her intimate gatherings called Human Potential Party. Such a great name. Her love and talent for connection and connecting individuals with shared interests of health, fitness, and really overall wellness led her to creating these events where she brings high-level experts in the field to share their knowledge in a setting where people can learn while enjoying themselves with others. And healthy snacks. I love that. I am so appreciative for my new friendship with Ashleigh, courtesy of our very close mutual friend, Gabrielle Lyon. For those of you who do not know who Gabrielle Lyon is, it's Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. She is one of the baddest integrative physicians on the planet. She's also been a guest on this podcast, episode 59. If you want to dive in and learn more about her, I highly suggest that. But yeah, she is a very intuitive woman, and she knew that Ashleigh and I would hit it off as homegirls, and that is very, very apparent in this fun talk that we shared. So I'm excited for you guys to get to know Ashleigh from this talk, and I highly recommend following her on Instagram. She's got a very fun feed. She shares a lot of valuable content there, in addition to signing up for her weekly newsletter. I love this email so much. It's bite-sized, with just great information, because Ashleigh's always up to fun shit. So it's something that I certainly look forward to, and I have a strong feeling, especially after taking in this conversation and learning more about Ashleigh, that you will feel the same way. So one last note, we are in New York City. There's going to be some background noise in there, but I think it makes it more fun. I like it real, and it's definitely that. So you guys, without further ado, please enjoy this conversation with my friend Ashleigh Van Houten. Turn it on.
That'll help.
Oh God.
Biscuits and rice. That's the name of your new album.
Dude, my girl, my business coach / business fucking teammate, we were doing a big 2020 game plan yesterday, and I do these beach runs. I live at the beach. The beach is my backyard. I do these runs often through the week. They're like 3 to 6 miles, just depends on the day and whatever.
Barefoot on the beach.
Barefoot in the sand, bikini. It's so primal. I fucking love it, Sometimes though, it's super hot, right? Like it's summer and you get bloody blisters. And I call it out on the something, you know, my little stories or whatever. I'm like, and, you know, I mean, I got to keep going because life is going to throw you blisters sometimes. And what are you going to do? You're going to crumble? No, you're going to, not me. I'm going to fucking push through and build my resilience, right? And so my girl, Amina, was like, we were talking and it came up. She's like, I know, bloody blisters. I'm like, oh, dude, that's like my gangster name.
Like, is this the nickname I really want to have for myself? That's okay. That's
but you know, like gangster mafia names. I'm like Bloody Blister.
I kind of like it. Okay, so
right?
So speaking to that, because I think this is a good segue, which will then take us into a segue into another conversation I want to talk about. What is your walkout song if you were going to be a UFC fighter?
Dang, girl.
What is it?
Music is such a big place for me, but I will tell you right now that. Damn, that's a hard one.
It's a good one, right?
It's a really good one.
It depends on your mood.
It kind of does, but it almost doesn't. And here's why. Because aside from my mom, my fucking life hero is Rocky. Always has been, and pretty much always will be. And I have chills because I feel like I'm rocking my life, you know? In some ways, I'm not going to say I'm an underdog, but like the challenge, adversity, it has shaped me, you know? Family history, like there's things where it's like I just feel like I'm rocking my life. And when I hear and I run the beach a lot to this, I train a lot, you know, but runs especially the Rocky IV soundtrack, you know, you hear Eye of the Tiger. Like I literally sometimes will hear Rocky's theme song Gonna Fly and tears, I'll be like in training and tears come to my eye because that's how deep it is for me that I feel it. So, you know, if I was going to fight and it was like shit's about to get real, and I got to turn on the Bruce Lee, the Rocky in me. Because Bruce Lee's like my soulmate. I fucking love him so much. I just don't know what his theme song is. But yeah, it would be Gonna Fly Now or Eye of the Tiger.
That's like a complete rabbit hole we could go down, would be imagining the walkout songs of various people that we love throughout history. That could actually be so like an entire episode. Can we do that at some point?
Yes.
Maybe we won't go down that rabbit hole quite right now, but I think that could be a good one.
No, that's a really fun one.
All right.
Okay, well, so can I throw it back at you?
Like, I've got a hip-hop one, and I've got, weirdly enough, a country one, because I don't listen to country music. Like, maybe some Johnny Cash, because, of course, I'm not a country fan, but the one that keeps coming up in my mind, because it makes me so happy, and it's just so fucking badass, is a song called Fist City by Loretta Lynn, and it's an old-school country song. We're going to put it on after this conversation is over, and it's this, like, old-school, like, Dolly Parton era country singer singing a song about a girl trying to mess with her man, basically, and she's saying, like, don't step to me because it's Fist City, and it's so good. I'm like, I would 100%
that would be your gangster name.
Fist City.
Bloody Blisters.
Oh my Fist City. Okay, it's done. Yep. Let's go out. We're in New York. We're in Midtown. Let's go cause some trouble.
I know, right?
Okay.
I love it.
That's we're already going
down
that was epic. Okay,
Good
but
work.
the reason I wanted to ask about that is because that's one of the things that I was so excited to meet with you in person and talk about, because we both share a love of jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts, and from a fan perspective as well as practicing it, you have like a lot of deep connections with it because you've been doing it for a long time. You've grown up with a lot of these
Gracie
people.
family.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about, and then you just mentioned, which I didn't know, about a pretty bad injury that you had that was martial arts related. So can you talk about how that's always been a part of your life? Like, tell me about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, Taekwondo is how I blew my knee out. Jiu-Jitsu started for me 9, I think I'm going into 10 years. But I don't train every week right now. It's just the way my life is set up. But it is forever a part of my life, so long as my body will let me, you know? My brothers have been training for years. One of my brother, Mike Saffaie, is a black belt. My family essentially grew up very close to Horion Gracie's family. So Hidon, Henner, Gracie, Hiani, like they're his kids and my siblings, and we've just merged, you know. It's been really interesting and just amazing. They're an incredible family, and I feel very fortunate because even just from the jiu-jitsu perspective, to be brought into jiu-jitsu, you know, with them opening their arms up to me. I mean, I'm learning from the best. I'm safe, you know, and it's just, so that's really like how martial arts has been integrated into my life. You know, when I started training, it was an immediate love for me with jiu-jitsu. Like I did the chop and roll.
How did you grow up with these guys? Like, how did you, like,
location, school. Yeah. Like, so it goes back to like my brother's high school. Yeah, and then I remember, it's so funny. I don't know, UFC, like MMA, getting into that for me, I haven't really done the math on how many years, but it's been a long time. I mean, I wasn't into it necessarily in 1996, so I'm 41. I graduated high school in 96. I was surfing all day. Like, I lived on Kauai, and that was really all I fucking cared about at the time, But, so it would be several years later that I would really fall in love with the UFC. And then, my brothers were already watching it and super into it. But it quickly became a love of mine. And then when I started training Jiu-Jitsu, that was an immediate love for me too. Mm-hmm. Like, there wasn't maybe I'll go back. It was like, I did the trap and roll, and that was a wrap for me. I was like, are you kidding me? How have I not known this? Why did I not start this soon enough? Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's pretty much how it's been integrated into my life. And yeah, I'm so grateful for it. I mean, even like just the perspective of UFC fights, they're family nights, unless I'm like actually at the fight. But then even then, it's like I got my brothers with me, But it's so exciting because we all get together, we have our food, and it's like, it's healthy fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I always really liked it. It's funny because I grew up, and I've talked about this before, but I grew up like watching like wrestling and like World's Strongest Man, and
you're so badass.
But it's like, there's something about it, and I don't know why, but there was something about just displays of like raw physicality that really did something for me. And it wasn't even necessarily, there is a component of like, it's attractive to me to see men and women doing things like that are just very primal and like a really primal expression of being a human.
Totally.
And fighting another human being in a ring, like gladiator style.
Exactly.
Is whether you like it or not, it is a very human act.
Totally.
And there's a lot of bravery. There's a lot of just raw kind of animal whatever expression it appeals to me a lot. And I don't know why it always did.
Well, like Dana White says, and I really do believe this, like fighting is in our DNA. Yeah. I think it's just what you're saying. It feels very primal. Wait, do you have brothers?
Yeah, so this is kind of an interesting thing. Like, I definitely got into watching and stuff, wrestling and stuff, because I had an older brother, but I am actually one of 8 siblings.
That's rad.
Yeah. So I've got a lot, but they were kind of spread out over a couple of decades. So like my dad was married a few times, my mom was married a couple times. Most of them are half siblings. Like some of them are a decade younger than me and some of them are a decade older. I'm like smack in the middle, which it's funny because when a lot of people meet me and I tell them that, they're like, oh really? Like I would have thought you were like an only child. I'm like, is that because I'm a loudmouth? Or like, what do you know, because usually it's like the middle child of a big family is kind of the one that's like overlooked, like that's sort of the stereotype. Yeah. And I'm like, maybe I like went the other direction. I'm like, I will not be overlooked. I'm in the middle. I'm just going to be a loudmouth. I don't know. All that to say, I probably was exposed to some of that because I had a brother that was a couple years older. And that's like, I know he's the one who introduced me to UFC, which was interestingly enough, I first learned about it, I guess I was probably in junior high or high school. I can't remember, like in the early days of the UFC when it was a little bit more blood sporty. Yeah. And I wasn't super into it at the time because I was like, this seems a little bit blood sporty. But then the more that I actually learned about martial arts and about the sport and about how technical and just incredibly impressive it is. Yeah. And as the sport evolved on its own too, right? I got more into it. But funny enough, like one of my favorite movies in the world is Bloodsport. I didn't want to interrupt you.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but I was thinking, I was like, listen, I'm like, because that was like me and my brothers, like, when it gets to Dustin, it's like, that movie is all time, girl.
Oh my God. I'm like,
yes.
JCVD, man.
I was with you on that. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up because that definitely makes me understand more of like, well, it's been more than that. It's really been my whole life because I even like to watch pro wrestling when I was younger with my brothers too. So. But I don't think of that top of mind, but that's awesome.
Yeah. So and we were saying earlier too that it was one of those things that it was really weird for me that I appreciated it for so long before I dipped my toes into doing it myself. And it was so weird that like for the first probably decade of being a UFC and an MMA fan, I literally didn't even connect like, hey, I should try doing this myself. I literally didn't even connect it.
Do you think that that's weird? Because, it wasn't happening more with women at the time? For sure, women were training, but like, it's nothing like, it's not like it is now, Like for me, it's like surfing. The minute Blue Crush came out, now there was more girls in the water than guys, and
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I feel like maybe if I was a decade younger and I learned about UFC when Ronda Rousey came in, probably I would have had a different experience of it. I would have been like, oh, this is cool to watch and I'm going to go do it.
Exactly.
You're right. That's a good point. But it still took me a while, even when it like clicked, like you could learn some of this stuff if you want to.
Yeah.
It took a while for me to be like, I'm going to actually go do it because it is intimidating. Let's be real.
Oh, no, it totally.
And it's more intimidating the less you know, for sure. Because
100%.
when you don't know what it's like to walk into a jiu-jitsu gym or like an MMA gym, you think it's all big, sweaty dudes and they're probably all going to be good and you're coming in by yourself and are there going to be any other women? Is it going to be awkward? And you have to touch people and like all this stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, when you get into it and you realize that everyone's just there to learn and connect and teach and be a part of this lifestyle like you were talking about, it's more than just kind of going in and rolling for an hour.
Right.
And also that you get over the awkwardness of like the little kind of petty things that you think are going to be awkward. Like, oh, I'm like literally on top of a strange man.
Yeah, totally. No, you
I'm
gotta
the only one here with boobs and like this is weird and that's weird. But when you're actually there to learn and you're in it, that you're not thinking about those things. He's not thinking about those things. You're not, you're there to learn and whoever has boobs is secondary. The boobs are secondary for once.
Well, that's a real testament to how powerful jiu-jitsu is because you're fucking so right that when people, for the most part, right? Like we can't speak for everyone, but for the most part, jiu-jitsu practitioners are there because we are so fascinated with this sport that is never ending in its layers. Like I say that you can't get to the center of the Tootsie Pop, which kind of dates me, but I'm proud of my age. But like that was I don't know if you remember the commercial, but like, you can't get to the center of jiu-jitsu. And that is so, for me, and I feel the same for you, being a very curious woman, that's the fucking magic right there. So yeah, like that, you kind of get to push those things away and, really focus on that. Now I need to ask you though, like, how did you get into jiu-jitsu?
I think it just was like the right place and the right time. So I had been like my sort of athletic career, I guess, just kind of quickly, I've always been interested in being active and working out and being strong. That was always something I wanted to do from a very young age, was be strong. I didn't always know how that would necessarily manifest. And it's funny because up until probably high school or even maybe university, I didn't think I was athletic because I wasn't super into team sports. They didn't really come particularly easily to me. Like I played a little soccer, whatever, but I wasn't into ball sports. And there's so much attention paid to that. And I think it's important to learn and be a part of team sports because there's so much that you can learn from that.
Right.
But because I didn't have like a huge aptitude for that, I was like, I guess I'm just not really an athlete. And it wasn't until I started experimenting more with, I guess growing up I did gymnastics, which I liked, but it was always individual sports. So I did gymnastics when I was a kid. I was a swimmer. I was pretty good at that. And then I got into CrossFit and then powerlifting and then bodybuilding and then jiu-jitsu. So all of these sort of, and not to say that there aren't other people involved in your success, but they're individual sports, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And those were the ones that I had more of a sort of passion and inclination to. And I think it was really just, I've talked about this before, I like to be more of a generalist. I haven't really had the, maybe inclination to pick one thing and stick to it, to be honest. Like I just love to learn and experience so much that I want to like pick pieces and do this and then try that and then take a break from this and do that. And that's just always what's kept me excited and interested. So, I did CrossFit for a while and I got to a point where I felt like I was competent and I did some things that I was really proud of. And then I'm like, I kind of feel like I want to try something else.
Yeah.
And so I moved into powerlifting and then I moved into bodybuilding and I really liked that. And then I was like, I'm going to the gym and like doing bicep curls every day. I want to do something else. I want to learn a skill. Like, let's do jiu-jitsu. I've been watching this for so long. Like, let's go try it. And then even from there, I veered off and I was doing boxing for like the last 6 months, which I love. And I will probably always want to continue doing that because it's so much fun.
Yeah.
But I really like having this sort of, maybe not necessarily super deep, but very broad base of interests and experience and like this sort of physical base of like I can kind of be competent in a lot of different things. And maybe it's just an excuse because I could never necessarily be like a lead at anything, but maybe I'm okay with that. Like maybe I just like the idea of just kind of dipping my toes everywhere.
Well, I love that. And I think I really love it because I feel a deep connection to it because, I grew up surfing for the better part of my life. I still do, but it's not like I'm out checking the waves every morning. I mean, I grew up in the pro surfing world, really. I mean, my best friends growing up are like the legends of female surfing, period. But like, they were the women that like broke the glass ceiling. Kiala Kenley, I don't know if you know who she is, but like, she's fucking crazy woman in the best way. Anyways, and like my surf friends and just people like surfers in general, a lot of times, like that's their whole thing, right? People who train jiu-jitsu, like they're there all throughout the week. They're checking the waves every single day. Well, I'm not, I'm not training jiu-jitsu every week and I'm not surfing. But the thing is like, it's always a part of my life. Mm-hmm. Like I'm never so removed from it that I can't speak to it like fluently, and not just obviously verbally, but like in the actual form of doing
body,
it.
yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. But I'm very similar to you that I think I'm just a really curious human, and it's a lot of it. I think it comes down to, for me, it's self-discovery and challenge, but that even leads back to self-discovery. It's like, well, what am I capable of? Capable is one of my favorite words. It's like, it's a big word for me, but it's like you like investigating yourself in all of these different, really incredible ways. Like that's really interesting. And then obviously it's really interesting and respectful to the person who can become obsessed and become the best in that thing. My best friend, Carrie Walsh Jennings, she's the GOAT of beach volleyball. Like, what? Like, you gotta be like, it's just
a rare personality for sure. I mean, It's like, I don't know if you've read that, but it's called Range, and the book is exploring whether being super myopically focused on one thing to become the best in the world is actually the best way to do it, or if being a well-rounded person and coming to your focus later in life is actually better. So there's all this kind of anecdotal evidence about like Tiger Woods versus, I don't know, some other golfer who wasn't as obsessed with golf. Yeah. And then like, like the Williams sisters versus other, and like just kind of different approaches. And there's a lot of psychology behind it. There's a lot of outliers that you can't necessarily rely on to be sort of statistically significant. But the concept that maybe like we think to be the best at something, you have to be really almost super humanly focused on one thing. And in some cases that works, but in a lot of cases, just having that sort of willingness to try and jump and do things and risk and try a lot of different things can form abilities and skills and kind of outlooks that actually really lend itself to being super successful, maybe a little bit later, or maybe it takes a little bit longer. But maybe that's just, we're just kind of speaking to it because we're like, we're just like a little bit good at everything and it's going to sort itself out later. Like, whatever. I mean, whatever.
Well, no, but what just came to my head actually as you're saying all this, and I'm thinking, you and I are both communicators. It's like a big, huge part of what we do for work. And I think that so much of a great conversation, I mean, obviously, number one, you have to be a great listener, but you need to be interested. And then, what can you speak about? Like how many different areas of topics can you go? One of the reasons why I love Joe Rogan, he is so interesting and he knows a lot about a lot of different things. And that's why he's able to bring on so many incredible guests from all different avenues. And that's powerful.
And he's willing to talk about anything.
Totally.
That's a big deal. Yeah.
So maybe like this has all been happening, because it's very supportive to like what we're doing now, right? I mean, I don't know. Just kind of put that together in my head, but
I like it. One of the things that you touched on that I wanted to bring back, because it's something that I really wanted to talk about specifically in this conversation with you, because it's something that I pick up on from us being Instagram friends and the kind of energy you put out. But you said the word capable, and this is something that I feel so passionate about. And I talked about it, I think probably recently on a podcast, that like one of my missions and one of the things that I want to talk about more in the world, especially for women, but for everybody, is the idea of competence. So competence and capability, I think, are two probably borderline interchangeable terms, and how that breeds confidence. Because people ask, like, they look at somebody that they think is confident and they're like, well, you're confident because you're good looking, or maybe because you had money, or because you're already successful in something. You have no reason not to be confident, right? But people don't realize that it very rarely true confidence comes from nowhere. You earn it, you gain it over the course of a lifetime, but that you can get it in very tangible ways. It's not like, oh, I was just lucky to be confident, or I got rich, so I'm confident because of that. It's through competency. It's through being capable.
Yeah.
There's nothing that breeds more true in your heart and gut confidence than just knowing that you're capable of things, whatever it is, right?
I agree.
Like maybe if you're capable in your job and you know that you're good at what you do because you worked at it and you learned and you studied and you asked other people and you surround yourself with smart people. And maybe it's you're capable in your martial arts practice because you work so fucking hard at it. And there's so many ways that can expand out, and your confidence in one way can trickle over into other things. But I think that should give people hope, because maybe you don't feel confident in something right now, but you have the power to get it. If you apply yourself and if you work and you learn and you have this sort of open mind to be willing to go there with it, that's
100%. I mean, that's poetry to me. I've made 2 shirts for Black Belt Beauty, and the first one says capable. And then the second one has power on it. And I think, and for me, where it really, what makes a woman sexy? Well, for me, just Roxanne, saffaie, like, for what makes me feel
strong
sexy.
Shoulders. Sorry. That's what I think. But anyway. That's my 2 cents.
Shoulders are so important, man. They really just make everything.
Just brings the whole room together. Just nice shoulders. I love it so much.
Damn, this needs to be video. I blew it, but next time. Okay, so the word that really resonates with me when I think of what lights me up and I feel like a sexy woman is I am capable. And that capability is not just in one territory. It's just how I do life. I do it with a mindset that is capable. And it's essentially like, it's a very empowered mindset, Oh, the hotel's calling.
What do they want? They can't have any of the huge kitchen chocolate, just FYI. There's nothing that they have that we want. Let's ignore them.
We're just going to let it roll. It's
roll.
Raw and real. We're New York City, baby.
That's right.
So, I love everything you just put out. It's so beautiful, and I'm echoing it and adding to it in that space. Like, specifically, I think even for women, you can define sexy however you want, right? This is very subjective. And I think that we've seen like what a sexy woman is. I think that model is even changing. And I think that we are moving to a space now where it's like, I got this is very attractive, Yeah.
Well, that was something that we were starting to talk about offline, and then we were like, no, wait until we start recording, because we were having so many good conversations over dinner. But
we're like,
one of the things I wanted us to kind of talk about was sort of growing up either through athletics or like you had very athletic family and yourself and your brothers and how people perceived you because of the way you look, and how maybe you wanted to put yourself out into the world versus sort of how I was doing this through bodybuilding and through my sort of obsession with strength, and kind of sort of the different opinions that we have maybe of it growing up. So I'd like to talk about that, because you said like you kind of grew up always being athletic and also looking athletic.
Right. Yeah. It's funny. And, I love that I love being strong when I was, growing up. And, I was thinking about it when you were saying that. I was like, actually, I loved being strong. There'd be like, what is it? What are these called again? These arm comp.
The people listening are like, I know what you're talking about, Roxy.
This is why it has to be video. Over the top, like
arm wrestling?
Yes, thank you.
Dude,
jeez.
Can we, I saw the motion, but I was like, are you talking about arm wrestling? We have to talk about arm wrestling.
Okay, listen, I would beat the guys, like in school. No, and I remember being proud of that, but it's interesting because at the same time, and I think, again, this really stems from when I got injured and then my body changed, right? I wasn't the girl who was like, if a guy said, oh, you're buff, you're like, even, like they were trying to give me a compliment. Yep. Like, girl, you're ripped, you're buff. And I would get offended, and I would let them know, like, no.
Is that because you thought that they were in some way saying that you were less feminine?
Well, I don't think that they were saying that. I think they were actually genuinely, for the most part, admiring the muscle, because they're just, men do like muscle, right? But I think for me, I sit so deeply. I mean, I really operate my masculine and feminine energy in a very harmonious way. And this is not something that I'm consciously thinking about. It's just, it really makes me who I am and feeds into my lifestyle. But I think that because at the time when I was growing, we're similar age, but like strong wasn't beautiful back then for girls. Like it wasn't a thing so much, right? Now we're in a different time. You know, we have Instagram, girls lifting, all this stuff, but it wasn't the case. And then, you know, you move me into being a celebrity makeup artist and I'm in fashion and all that. And it's like, listen, I stand out, like, you know? And so I think I was so deeply sitting in my feminine energy of like, no, dude, I'm not some buff girl. Like, it's interesting.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I guess maybe like I'm not naturally jacked. I had to work for it. So like, I mean, maybe there's a part, and this is no disrespect meant, but maybe, and I'm not saying it came naturally to you, but you are a naturally athletic looking person.
I have a mesomorph built, so we have more muscle.
So maybe it was more like, not that you took it for granted, but you're like, this is who I am, and I don't necessarily want that to be the first thing people notice or talk about.
I didn't identify with being buff.
Yeah.
I identified very much with, I'm an athlete and I'm strong. And by the way, I'm not even like, I'm not jacked either. And especially,
you're a little bit jacked.
Am I really?
Yeah,
I don't know.
a little bit jacked.
It's all subjective, right?
Yeah.
But like, I think that it just, for me, it was just not how I identified with myself. I mean, now it's obviously a different story, you know? I remember telling, like, one funny quick thing. I remember seeing this guy who used to work with or whatever at an event. Hadn't seen him for a year. And it was like passive aggressive. And he was like, oh my God, you're so like buff, like so ripped, buff. I'm like, thanks. And now it's different because I don't take offense anymore because I'm like, And then but he kept going, and now I'm like
almost in a like, why?
That's it, and I caught it, and he was like, but you're just like buff. I'm like, yeah, we'll fucking get to work then.
If you're feeling triggered, maybe you need to spend more time in the gym. I remember having like similar, I mean, most of the time, again, people are complimentary, people are positive, people are trying to be nice. But like, I remember some old dude in the gym at one point telling me, you know, like, you don't need to work on your shoulders anymore. Like, they're big enough. And of course, this is a total random dude, like, who felt like he could tell me.
That's crazy. You know?
And I was like, that's your opinion? I'm cool over here.
Said that? That's so nice of you.
Yeah, because I mean, like, I'm not there to like tell this poor old guy like to fuck off, you know? Like, I don't care really. Like, but it was just this. I mean, first of all, it's just the like entitlement that people just still feel like they can tell you what they think of your body. Like, I'm like, it's not really your fucking business. But
totally.
But and also the idea too that I think some people have that there's still like there's a limit to, even within the fitness world, because we're all becoming more accepting of strong looking women, there's still sort of a limit to where, and everybody's limit is different. Like what I consider to be personally for me more muscular than I would like to be is perfect for somebody else or whatever. So this old guy thought maybe that my delts were a little much for him, and I'm like, that's your business and that's fine, and I'll be over here doing delt raises till I die because I like them. Like that's just,
I love them. I know you have amazing shoulders, and fuck yeah, that's
what I'm going with. And instead of like
that's
trying
so
to work on
nice.
my, this is the other, hashtag real. Instead of trying to like work on the parts that I know I'm never going to have like striated hamstrings, I'm just going to keep working those fucking delts till I die. Because I'm just working on the parts that I love.
Oh my God, that's a good part.
Bodybuilding, this was a conversation that we were going to have too. Because I love the sport. Like I think that I've talked about it a lot. And I actually, when I was competing, I was blogging about it because, as we've talked about, like I love to write and I love to communicate, and I think that I'll have to see if I can pull them up somewhere because they're online somewhere. And I really had a lot of fun. It was like really cathartic. It was really fun because I felt like I was a bit of an outsider because I came at it. It's funny, there's like bodybuilders versus CrossFitters, and they all kind of like somehow lightheartedly like kind of make fun of each other, right? Because like one is the aesthetic and one is the performance, but they're both really just aesthetic and just want to look good and like show off like shirtless on Instagram. Anyway, they're much more similar than they are different is what I'm saying, because I've done both. I've been in not really competitive CrossFit, but I was like pretty into CrossFit when it was like really kind of cresting in like 2008, 9, 10, kind of whatever. I wrote my master's thesis on the CrossFit Games. Like I was pretty into it.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people go from like functional or just regular bodybuilding meathead workouts and then they found CrossFit, and I went the other way. Like I was doing CrossFit and then I moved into bodybuilding.
Can I ask you why? Like what?
Why did I make the switch?
Yeah, like what was...
Well, I mean, part of it is what we were saying before about how, like, I do things for a couple of years and I move on. And I really felt like, again, this is just me kind of saying maybe I'm, like, not that ambitious, but I'm like, I can do muscle ups I can deadlift twice my body weight. Like, I'm kind of good. Like, I don't really need to, like, quit while I'm ahead. Like, I don't want to hurt myself, right? Like, I felt like I learned a lot, and it was super empowering. And it was at a point in my age, it was at a point in culture where we were learning that women are literally capable of things we didn't think they were capable of. Like, going back to pop culture movies that we love, G.I. Jane, fucking obsessed with her. She was doing pull-ups and one-arm push-ups, and she had a shaved head. She was super badass. But this was like when people thought that women couldn't do this stuff. Like, military standards are different for women. Women have to do a static hang on a pull-up bar instead of pull-ups because women can't do pull-ups. I'm like, turn on the CrossFit Games. Right. Where there are women doing like 40 weighted pull-ups. Like, you know what I mean? So anyway, it was a really, like, I'm happy for that time in my life, but I wasn't going to be super competitive at it. I sort of got what I needed to. There's also, like, there's pros and cons to every sport or every kind of athletic community where when it gets to a point where it's more like anxiety inducing, or, you know, it can just be problematic when you're turning a workout into a competition every day. Right. Yeah. So takes the fun I kind of just like took what I wanted from that community and I kind of just moved on. And then I was getting into bodybuilding because truly, I think it was one of those things where I just had enough. I loved bodybuilders. I loved muscles. I loved watching other people do it. And I just had enough people in my head saying, like, just give it a shot. Just give it a shot. And I was like, all right, fine. You know, I'd always done the, like, I can't diet, because you assume that no one can kind of stick to a diet like that. So I was like, yeah, I can't do it. And then I just literally one year was like, I want a new goal. Let's just do it. Whatever. That's
amazing, because it's so, and we'll tap into this, but it is fucking challenging.
There's a lot of parts of it that are challenging, and the food is probably the biggest part of it. Yeah. But I feel like I had a bit of a unique experience with it on a couple of levels. And of course, I always preface talking about my bodybuilding experience by saying that I was never doing it with the intention of going pro, and I was never doing it with the intention of being like the best bodybuilder in the world, because let's be real, you need to take drugs to do that. You need to take like steroids and stuff to be really good at stuff 99% of the time.
Well, no, and it's also because of, straight up, it's because of the way that you're getting judged. It's not even, I think it's just the way the sport is set up, to be honest.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of problematic aspects to a sport that is literally judging your aesthetics. It's a beauty competition. Like, in a lot of ways it is. Right. And I think that the way that I managed to have such a positive experience, there's a couple reasons. One, I got into it old. So I was in my late 20s and I was already pretty comfortable in my skin at that point. Yeah. Like, I wasn't doing it to like prove that I was cute or to get people to pay attention to me. Like, I get plenty of attention regardless. I didn't need to get on a bikini on a stage. It was fine. So I really wasn't, not to say that you don't want to look good, but I wasn't doing it for that kind of validation. It truly was like, can I do this crazy thing and stick to it? Anyway, so I was older. I was a little bit more like comfortable in my skin. And also I made a really smart decision by getting a really good coach. And one of the pieces of advice I would give people if they're interested in it is to really do your research with the coaches. And for my 2 cents, I found somebody who, first of all, was a woman, because I feel like with the complicated physiology that we have, I just think it's helpful for it to be somebody who understands the way the female body works. I agree. She was somebody that had an aesthetic look that I liked. So like, again, it's just my opinion, but I'm like, if you're a bikini competitor, like, are you going to work with like a super heavyweight male bodybuilder? Like, just, I don't know, maybe it would be good to have somebody that kind of looks like what you would want to look like. And I met with her, and she was a natural bodybuilder. She never once pressured me to like try to take anything or do anything weird, or it was a very, very moderate approach as far as bodybuilding goes. Now, to the average person, what I did to prep for a bodybuilding competition would sound very extreme, but in the bodybuilding world, I was actually doing it in a really, really reasonable manner, honestly. And as a result, I was not the leanest person there, and I wasn't, doing 3 hours of cardio, and I wasn't whatever, but because I was doing it in such a reasonable way, I was able to really enjoy it a lot more. And like, I wasn't depleted and tired and sick, and I wasn't losing my period, and I wasn't like having kind of all of these issues that are so common with female bodybuilders. And because I wasn't going into it trying to win, I could just really enjoy the process, which I did. I really, really did. And it's not to say that it wasn't hard and that eating super fucking plain food for 3 months doesn't kind of suck. Like, it does. I was in the gym more than I wanted to be. It's not the healthiest thing in the world, but it's a goal. Most athletic endeavors aren't actually very healthy.
Well, there's a dark side when you're trying to win.
Absolutely. But even not, like, we both know people who train and coach elite athletes. And sometimes the people who are performing and looking the best in the world are the least healthy people. Like,
it's true.
Some of these elite athletes are like, look at their blood markers. They're close to death.
Exactly.
Like, that's not healthy. That's not about longevity. That's about achieving a goal. And I think that if you're educated about it and you know the risks that you're undertaking, that's on you. Like, if you want to climb Mount Everest, that's probably not the safest, healthiest thing to do. But if that's, you're going to educate yourself and dedicate yourself to that and do it, knowing what the risks are, go for it.
I agree. You know? Yeah, totally.
And I was trying to kind of toe the line between, I know I'm doing something that isn't the healthiest thing long term, but I'm going to do it in the healthiest way that I can. And I know that ultimately my health does come first. So if I was experiencing, like, I was working with a naturopath and I was like making sure all of my like blood markers were good and I was checking in with myself, and I'm like, if I feel like I'm really doing something that's detrimental, like, I'm gonna stop. Like, this isn't like get on stage or die. Like, I'm gonna do
it's not worth it to you.
No. Yeah. And I won all the competitions because it was just like, I just had there was no stress. Like, I'm backstage with all these people who are like freaking out and they're like just upset and worried and nervous and like, am I skinny enough? And did I do this? And am I lean enough? And I was just like, well, I'm in a bikini. Like, look, I got all this weird paint on. Like, I was just having a good time with it. And I mean, if you've watched a beauty pageant, like, the people up there who look like they're having a good time, like,
totally.
Right? Like, I had fun with it. Like, I really did. And I feel like there's, again, a part of me that I feel like if I had started it a little bit earlier, and now I'm working with one of the jobs that I have, one of my many jobs, I'm working with Ben Pakulski, who is one of the best bodybuilders in the world. And so we talk about meathead stuff all the time when we're podcasting together and working. And there's like a part of me that's like, I feel like if I was ever going to be really good at any sport, it was that one. And I just it wasn't worth the sacrifices that I have to make to take it further than I did. Like, I competed at a national level. I did really well. I did not compromise my health. I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot about my body and how it works. I learned a lot about the industry. I met a lot of great people.
Yeah.
I had a six-pack a couple times. Like, no, it's all good. Like, I took a lot from it. And I think that's ultimately what I try to do with all of my, like, physical pursuits is, like, what can I learn from this and take with me for the rest of my life, right? And I feel like I got a lot out of it.
That's amazing. Yeah. And how long was that period for you?
It was probably like, another thing that I did that was very reasonable, I keep doing air quotes, like the people listening can hear it, but reasonable, was I would compete once a year, so any more than that, because I was doing like a 3 to 4 month prep, and then ideally you want to take like a sort of 3 to 4 month period getting out of it. A lot of people compete more than that, and I saw the negative health effects of that, so I was like, 1 a year is good. So it was about 3 years that I was competing. I only did 3 competitions, and first and then top 5 in the country in one of the more competitive, it was in Canada, the biggest province in the country. So
that's amazing.
I did well. Like, a lot of it's genetics too. Like, I just, I've been swimming and doing gymnastics since a kid. I have wide shoulder that can be in figure. So figure is sort of like, I like to explain it as, it's sort of like a CrossFitter who goes on a diet, like very athletic, very athletic.
There's a difference between bikini.
Bikini is a little bit
more petite, right?
More petite, less muscular for sure. Yeah, it's that's probably the closest to like full-on beauty pageant. It's like, are you cute and pretty and kind of lean and you look good? And then figure is a little bit more just sort of athletic. It's more about like wide shoulders, small waist, like that kind of typical like sort of V taper that looks really nice. And then you go up and it's physique, which is like getting more muscular, and then bodybuilding. And then there's all kinds of new, like there's always new categories being brought in. The only thing that I regret is that I never got to do, because like I literally watch like Pumping Iron like once a month for fun. Like, I am just so obsessed with meathead culture. But one of the things that I never got to do in figure, because figure is just posing, is like the sort of onstage routines, but the things that the dudes get to do where they go out and like do flex offs, like
totally,
each other, like just jump in front of each other and like front double biceps.
My brother's like, it's really funny. I've seen my brother.
It's so much fun. Like, it's so much fun. So I'm like, when I'm going down to Tampa this week and I'm hanging out with Ben at his gym, and I'm like, I'm doing a pose off with you. Like,
girl,
you like it or not, I don't know if you're ready, but
can you live IG that?
Yes. I'm like, this is like a lifelong goal for me, is to like do a flex down with like a bodybuilder. So that's definitely happening. But speaking of that, if we want to go into segues, one of my heroes, you were talking about Rocky, one of mine was Arnold, because I loved his attitude in competition. Like, some people might say it was like maybe a little bit mean or a little bit sleazy how he would like fuck with people's heads, and like, it's genius. Like, watch how he worked. Like, watch how he got into people's heads and messed with them. And he sort of had like a lighthearted attitude about it. But like, you watch him compete in pumping iron, and like, he took it seriously, of course, but like, he was having a good time.
He really was. I mean, it appeared to be that way.
He had fun, and he knew that he was good, and he like, you could tell that he just visualized like every night. He's like, I'm winning this thing, so there's really no other way this is going to go down, and that's why it went down the way it did. And then now he's in the Game Changers documentary.
Girl, I know. I was thinking that. I'm like,
all my heroes are dead.
Dude, I know. When I've met him a couple times, and he's really sweet, and it was all, it was. Listen, in my makeup career, like, I work with a lot of people, and I've never been one to really, I don't, like, the celebrity thing, it's like, doesn't mean anything to me, and that's probably one thing that has helped me in my career, because you can't be like fanning out on your, and there are people who are like that, but anyways, that's a rabbit hole. But I want to say this because I know you'll appreciate it. There was one time I was on working some press stuff for the what's the fucking movie? Oh my God, I'm totally forgetting my client's name, with all the like
Expendables?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we were down doing some press stuff for Comic-Con, and basically, girl, I found myself in the elevator, and I was texting my siblings because I was like, you guys, I'm in the fucking elevator with Rocky, the Terminator, and Drago.
I can't.
Tell
me you got like a sneaky picture.
And I was no, I didn't. But because but that was like the most, if I've ever had a moment. So that was a moment for me because, these three characters were so influential and even still are to this day, so that was incredible. But how did I get there? Bodybuilding?
I don't know, I mentioned that I really liked Arnold. Iron and Arnold. But speaking of influential, so I would love to talk about, and I don't think we need to dissect Game Changers, but we have to talk about that conversation that's happening around nutrition, because we both are maybe coming at it from kind of slightly different angles. Like, we're both obviously very into health and wellness and treating our bodies well, but you said, was it vegan or vegetarian?
Never vegan. I mean, I think I played with it for 3 months, not on purpose, but I landed there, and then I was like, no, I want my fish back. Mm-hmm. But so, basically I didn't eat meat for 17 years. I grew up eating meat.
And why did you stop?
Yeah, so I did this cleanse. And at the time, I was eating bread and things where I knew, like, just can't eat, like, things didn't feel right to me. So I did this cleanse, and then, 10 days later, I just didn't gravitate. What I gravitated towards was plant. I wanted plant. And that made sense. If the cleanse that I did, it was very restrictive. And so I think my micronutrients, like, my body was like, feed me that. So for me, I was like, well, if I'm not gravitating towards meat, then maybe I don't need it. And then I was like, well, I'm type A, we're more the vegetarians in the blood type. And I was like, oh, maybe that's why too. So
I'm O type, which is
so
towards like the carnivore side of it.
That's exactly.
Which I never really, and I don't know if you know more about this, if really actual science or studies bear this whole blood type thing out. But I was speaking with a functional medicine physician that I know who, I don't know how we got into the conversation, but she said, I don't generally put too much credit on the blood type dieting thing, except for O-type people do really tend to gravitate more towards like a meat or like animal protein based thing. Generally, just in my experience, anecdotally is something that she said. Yeah. I was like, this really makes sense, because for me, growing up, like, I was never like, oh, I gotta eat meat because that's the cool thing. Like, I just ate whatever. And I always veered more towards like, red meat, and even just kind of like organ meats and like weirder things that maybe weren't naturally like available to me, but I really gravitated towards them. So I don't know if they're really, do you know if it's like really science bears this out?
I don't know. I don't know if it's like, if there's actual official science, like if some of the great doctors we know would validate it.
We should ask Gabrielle.
I know we should.
Shout out Gabrielle for introducing us, first of all.
Oh my goodness,
she's yes.
The best. I love you. You're so loved. She's such a fucking badass. Mm-hmm. Well, and actually, she's a great piece to put in this, because I really bought into that idea. And again, I wasn't naturally gravitating towards meat, even though I grew up on it. And maybe there is some validity to that concept, but learning about the actual nutrients in red meat and, learning a lot from Gabrielle, especially in muscle, just muscle protein synthesis, the health of your muscles basically, and how it's so fundamental to like the health of your entire life. I don't even care if that type A or blood type is, you know what I mean? If like there's something there, because unless something becomes totally wrong, which I don't think would ever be the case. Like now that I eat meat after 17 years and I can feel the difference, my blood markers are showing that there's no going back here.
But you went 17 years. So it must have been working for you for a good part of that.
Okay, so that's really funny because I would think so too. And so when I finally got to a place where I could do my first comprehensive blood lab, and I had someone, my friend Julie Keene, who's an incredible clinical nutritionist and can read the language, understand blood labs, it's a foreign language. When I was finally able to do blood labs with her, we discovered that I was anemic. And the interesting thing about that is that I didn't know. But like, what would I really base it off of? Because obviously my body, my ferritin levels were at 14. And I think Gabrielle talks about like for hair growth, it's 80. And I don't want to get the numbers wrong, but I was
a lot higher.
I was at the fucking bottom of the barrel, And here I am lifting weights and living this real high performance life. And I feel great. Like I feel good, but it's not about could you feel better? And the answer I know now that I'm on the other side is yes. I will say this, like before I found out that I was anemic, because of all the research that I had been doing and learning about the value in eating meat, and specifically red meat is what I really focus on. I was honestly like, sometimes I'd be like, damn it, I wish I ate red meat, But at that point too, it's such a mental game because, I don't have blood in my kitchen. Like I didn't have any of that, so I'm super plant-based. I love fish and eggs, but that was the extent in my animal protein, right? I always remember my brother saying like, if you ate more animal protein, be more lean. Like when I would like be asking him questions about diet. It's so funny.
Like, I'm not hearing it. I think one of the to just put a pessimistic spin on it, but one of the downsides of how resilient the human body is with regards to nutrition is that, like you kind of touched on, like, yeah, you're doing okay, but could you do better? You don't even know. Like if you are eating, say, a vegan diet, or say you're eating a really standard American, highly processed diet or whatever, your body is so resilient and it can put up with so much shit. Like think about, and no judgments to anybody, think about people who are smoking a pack of cigarettes a day.
Yeah.
And like it is an incredible,
or just drinking a ton.
Testament to the human body that we can do the kind of things that we do to our bodies and they just keep ticking. So you can do a diet that's less than optimal for a really long time and not know it necessarily because again, like you said, you don't know how good you can feel until you do it.
Right.
But a lot of people think because the standard American diet is so fucked up, and I'm just going to say it.
No,
like,
it is.
Without we can debate all day about whether you should be carnivore or paleo or keto or whatever. The standard American diet is fucked up.
Right.
And there's such a huge amount of people in the world who think that maybe kind of off digestion or sort of feeling icky after you eat or being tired in the afternoon or needing coffee to get up and function throughout the day, that's normal. That's what being a human is. And again, I'm not saying this with judgment. I'm saying that this is the culture, the food culture that we're in, and that's why it makes it so tough to break out because that's what's normal.
Right.
Trying to eat whole foods and trying to like get off stimulants and trying to feel good all the time and caring about perfect poops. That's weird.
No,
that's
sure.
weird.
Like,
but it shouldn't be.
It's not. I know, and it's maybe I can seem like an extremist in some ways because my diet is I'm very particular. Mm-hmm. I'm very particular. I don't want GMO oils, and I don't eat there if it has GMO. Or I will sit down, but I'm not gonna eat the food. I don't like plastic. I have glass bottled water, and I have my ways, but I know how to navigate my diet for me, and to where it's not interfering with anybody else. But people can definitely. I'm not saying there's a claim on me in this way, but I know I can seem very extreme. But my thing is that I just know. First of all, I'm a biology geek. I love nutrigenomics. I study this shit because I love it. I also love it. There's that hotel again.
Do you want to pick it up and hang up on them or something?
I
don't even know where the phone is in here.
It's in the bedroom.
Roxy's got the biggest
I know what they're doing. They're calling me because my Four Sigmatic arrived, and this is not an ad.
Important. When we've been crushing it all night, too. We're like, I'm just going to take a sip of my 4 Sigmatic here. They should be actually sponsoring you. They should.
I swear. Shout out to 4 Sig, man.
It's good stuff.
They're pretty popular on my podcast by now because I always dose people out with lion's mane before we start talking.
Yeah,
So
you
we're,
were like, hey, do you
high.
want some reishi? Because you talk like you are on coke. I'm like, no, that's just me. No drugs. That's me all the time. That's why people tell me I shouldn't do drugs. They're like, you already act like it. I'm like, yep.
Oh, you're the best giggle. I love
Now people are really going to think we're on drugs. I don't even know what
it's
we're
like
talking
natural
about.
drugs.
Yeah,
Yes.
natural high, being happy,
it's-
working out, having good poops. That's what, that'll give you a natural high, guys. Do it. Okay, let's try to bring this back because I have a question
Sorry,
for you.
Thaina, you're so good. Bring it.
Okay. What made you decide after 17 years to start putting animal protein and specifically red meat back into your diet? And what was that transition process like?
Yeah, so when I found out that I was anemic, because I was already so intrigued by all that I had been learning about the benefits of eating meat, specifically, I was focusing on grass-fed red beef. I was like, that's it. I'm ready. And my doctor didn't say, hey, you need to change your diet. I was ready. So I pulled the trigger and said, that's it. I'm going to get a grass-fed steak. And that's just how, I still have to supplement, because I was in too deep of a hole, And so anyways, literally the next night, one of my friends literally had to go with me because it was hard on me. Mentally, it's really hard. Like I'm about to cut this flesh thing, and I hadn't done it for 17 years. And I'm not soft, but it was like, that was something. It wasn't the best thing. I wasn't like, oh my God, yes. One thing I will say, a lot of people think, and I can't speak for everybody's body, but they have this idea like, oh no, it's probably going to be really hard on your body because, that didn't happen to me.
Okay.
Like my body, straight up, girl,
Loved it.
Girl, yeah. Well, so what I did, because this was very important to me, I was like, I am not going to be fucking anemic. My ferritin levels, it's so important, My hair wasn't super shedding, and then it did start super shedding. It doesn't shed anymore, but things started to show up very slightly, and I didn't want it to get worse. So I wasn't ready to go to the market and buy the steak and bring it home and cook it. That took a couple weeks. And so I took some steak to go from this spot that I love at home, and I made sure that I had it in my fridge so I could eat it the next day and the next day. And then very good friend of mine, Amber, love you. She's a chef. She's amazing. And she cooks a lot of grass-fed bison recipes. And so I was like, look, I got to bring meat back in. Like, can you help me? And she straight up made me this incredible bison dish with lemon and cilantro and all this stuff, and then turned me into the Wild Buffalo Company, which I get their products now through Vital Choice too, because I buy my fish through them as well. And so, it honestly took me, I would say, like seriously, I think within 2 weeks, by the third day, I'm just going to be super real. Like, well, fuck, I always am. I literally took the steak with no fork and fucking had it and
That's the way to do
did
it.
it. And it
Eat
felt
with your
good.
hands.
I love that. So now my diet, it's interesting because I have red meat. I mean, not every day is the same, but a couple times a day. I'm doing it twice a day. I typically eat 2 times a day. I do time restricted. Yeah, I like smaller windows of eating. But I get so much nutrients from what I'm eating, from the bison, from the steak, and then I'll have some avocado and some plants, because I do love my plants so much, and then I'm sustained.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it.
So was there ever a really tough sort of ethical component for you, like you said? And I can imagine, I come from a kind of the other end of the spectrum, but I can imagine that not having animal protein in your diet for a while and then having a hunk of flesh in front of you, it's a bit of a trip. But did you at any point were you I don't feel right about eating animals, I feel like this is wrong? Or was it more just your body wasn't asking for it and then it was?
So I love that question because how do I want to say this?
It's tricky. This is a tricky...
It is well, listen, I think no matter what, we can always offend someone. So I'm never going to hold back. I have tact and I have respect, and, people that know, it's very clear that I am a very respectful woman, Piss me off, we'll see something different. You know what I'm saying?
I can choke you out.
Exactly. But the word that I feel closest to is I am a very connected human. And that's where some people would say spiritual. I don't feel a connection to that word as much as I feel connection, because I still feel separation in that word spiritual. It's deeper for me. I feel oneness. I feel whole. I feel absolutely connected with this force of life and all that is in it. So how could you eat an animal? Well, how's the lion doing it? You know? Mm-hmm. Listen, I'll say it straight up. Before I eat my food, like, my dinners are my rituals. I love them. I talk to my food and I give it love because it's reverence. I am nothing without this. I'm not, and I'm eating real food because we know that there's fake food out there. That's what the majority of the standard American diet is, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really calories, right? I'm eating earth. I'm eating the force. Okay, that's, if I have a fucking religion, it's like Star Wars and shit. Yeah, you know? Force, so, yeah. And it's like, but we're a partnership. So for me, I feel like they're extending their life into me, for me to extend my life. Because this is what I really connect with also, is like, I'm here to be the best version of myself. And that is not just for me. Everything, we are experiences, we affect everything, right? I'm affecting you, you're affecting me, we're affecting the people that are listening, right? We don't need more sick people. We don't. That's not going to help the fucking world, right? We need people to be feeling their best, to be happy, because when we are in this space, we are more present, we are contributing. This, to me, is the math formula. So yes, is there sacrifice? Did the bison have to die? I will say this too. I am very picky about my sourcing. Like, I only do grass-fed, and I think wild buffalo. I think Amber even said, like, they sage the animal. I mean, you know, like, because there's a lot of inhumane shit that's out there, and
absolutely,
yeah.
Yeah.
So I do believe that, like, harboring that, you know, the animal can harbor the fear and all that, and I'm not a part of that. So I'm very picky, and I pay the extra price, and that's reverence too, for the animal and for me. And so, but yeah, I literally have like a moment with my food, and that feels good for me in many ways. And so I didn't stop eating meat because I wanted to save the animals. But again, that's not to say that I don't have a deep love and reverence for all
caring about
life.
Doing it in a humane.
Exactly.
I mean, I think I come at it from a really pragmatic perspective, and I've really spent a lot of time thinking about how I want to communicate how I feel about food, or I even want to communicate about it, because it's so triggering for a lot of people. It's so polarizing for a lot of people. It is almost at a spiritual level for people, where people consider their dietary choices so much a part of who they are as a person,
their
as
identity.
A moral, good person, that it can be just a really, really hot topic, right? And
right.
I also feel like this is, again, sort of the pessimist in me coming out a little bit. I like to think realist, but maybe it's pessimist. You can weigh in. I just feel like a lot of times in the environment that we're in right now, where increasingly it seems like it's more about picking and choosing the information that validates what you already believe, rather than being open to ideas, where facts don't matter as much as they used to. And that's a really scary place for somebody who, again, I really pride myself on just being pragmatic. I want to learn and understand, and I will always be willing to adjust my beliefs and feelings based on information. And I like to eat paleo. That's if I have to put a term to it, it's whole foods paleo.
Yeah.
And I tend more towards meat, animal protein heavy, rather than plant-based paleo, because you can kind of go, there's all the different perspectives. If there's some really compelling evidence comes out, not Game Changers, something else that comes out that is telling me that maybe, you know, if we go back to maybe red meat can be problematic, or that too much protein is bad for you, or whatever, like, I'm willing to adjust my beliefs, and I think that we should all be willing to do that. But I think for me, again, the pragmatic piece that I want to communicate to people is I will never try to get any of my vegan or vegetarian friends to change their mind. I just want to put the information out there. And I think that if people are educated about the optimal human diet for most of humanity, because we're very bio-individual, and there are some people who thrive on a vegan diet and people who thrive on a carnivore diet and everything in between. Most of us are in between. If you get all the facts and you say, I am choosing to be vegan because I don't like the idea of killing and eating animals, that's up to you. And you're allowed to make that decision, especially if you knowingly are okay with eating a suboptimal diet because you do not want to kill animals, right?
Right.
Okay. We also have to understand the hard truth that for any of us to eat, animals are going to die. Whether you're eating tofu or you're eating grains or you're eating bison, animals are dying because we're at the top of the food chain. There's a lot of us. We're all doing industrial agriculture where huge swaths of land are being raised to harvest all of these plants and GMO crops and all these things that we're eating.
Yeah.
And it's really about a lot of times the animals that we're comfortable with killing and eating. So I think there's that part that people need to understand is that none of us, we all have blood on our hands, right? It's what we're comfortable with.
Right.
And also, again, it's the primal and human aspect of it. It's something you touched on. You give a lot of respect to the animals that have to die for you, but that is part of the circle of life. In nature, animals aren't dying quietly in their sleep. They're being eaten, you know? And that's what has to happen for life to continue. And I think that if we just do everything we can to, like you said, source the best quality ingredients, whether it's vegetables, produce, or, animal protein, and be respectful and be understanding and be educated in our choices, that's what matters most to me. If you learn everything there is to know about nutrition and still decide to be a vegan or if it fits your macros or whatever the hell you want to do, great. But I think just ascribing morality or lack thereof to things, I think is problematic.
I should applaud you. That's so perfect, so beautiful. I really agree with that. I resonate with that. And one thing that I want to kind of add to that is I think it's funny, admittedly, I can get triggered sometimes because I feel like, it's fine. Like you said, if this is your belief and this is what you want to do, great. But when you're making the other side look bad. Now, listen, I haven't seen Game Changers yet, and I don't even want to, but I do only... the only reason why? I know, it's I don't want to actually do them a favor, but because I know it's going to be a part of more conversations coming up.
Yep.
And listen, I'll use myself as an example. I was anemic. And you know what? Yeah, I could just supplement, but that would only get me so far. Adding the meat. And by the way, it's not just iron. We're talking about so many other nutrients that are so important to the system, to be running on optimal, especially as a menstruating woman. Mm-hmm. You have a heavy period. Listen, so do what you want to do, but don't make the other side or people who are eating animal protein we're doing something wrong. Also, I don't really think that anybody, even my diet, which, I don't do the title either. I think I'm more of a nutrivore than anything because I'm always trying to attack the most nutrients out of my food, when I eat. But it is really in the paleo-esque and more in the animal protein. I don't do organ meat. I know that's a big part of your diet, but I have a lot of respect for where you come at it, and that's because I'm very open like you and I'm interested in learning the ways at which we can really support ourselves to be living from our most healthiest state, right? Yeah. But all this being said, I'm never gonna say, hey, this is what your diet should be.
Yeah.
Who the fuck?
I mean, ultimately, I think we've reached a level, modest as it may be, of wisdom that we have reached the point where we know that telling people that what they're doing is wrong or stupid doesn't change minds.
No.
So you can talk about politics, you can talk about food, you can talk about workout methodologies. Saying that something that they're doing isn't good or, you're stupid or that's dumb or that's not the right thing, that never changes somebody's mind. What you do is put information out. You try to live the best life that you can.
Yeah.
You be willing to answer questions and connect with people when they reach out to you. That was the biggest thing for me because being in the sort of health and fitness space, so I write for Paleo Magazine, I host that podcast, I'm working with Ben Pakulski in the sort of bodybuilding realm, all of this stuff. I had this desire for a long time to try and, for lack of a better word, force this information on the people that I loved, that I thought could benefit from it, and learned very quickly through frustration and a lot of trial and error that's not going to work. You can't force change. You can't force a willingness to engage on anybody. But with a little bit of patience and a little bit of stepping back and saying, I'm here if and when you need me.
Yes.
The people will come to you when they're ready.
It's so true. I experienced that in my own life. But also I'm going to add to that and say specifically around diet, man, unless you know someone's genes and their blood markers, that's really where I think I get triggered. Because I'm like, girl, you're promoting that. That's cool. But do you even know what ferritin is? Because there's probably a good chance that you don't.
Yeah.
And if you want to be promoting, like, again, by all means, do for you. But like you said, we are bio-individual. You cannot be saying this is the best thing for you when you don't even know what their genes are doing and how their genes respond to food and where they are deficient and where they need more. And it's so fucking complex. So that is something that really, when I see that, I'm like, man, like the person who has that privilege, like, listen, when Gabrielle, when I finally get to do my blood labs with her, like when she says, Rox, this is what your diet needs, and this is what it does not need. That's who I'm listening to because she understands biology. She's looking at my body of how to, especially in my case, it would be to not just keep me, good and healthy, but like to keep me kicking ass in my life. That's who I'm listening to, not someone who's like, this is my belief, this is what so I just feel very like people should really consider when you're trying to promote something. I think the problem is that, people build their identity around it. Now it's like your whole social media fucking page and it's your whole, and I know, again, this is a hot subject, but listen, it is what it is, man.
I feel bad too. Like I've seen people talk about like people who have recovering vegans or vegetarians where they, like you said, they built a brand on a certain ideology around food. And then when they decided they had the courage to make a change in maybe adding in animal protein or just changing things for their own health.
Yeah.
And people would really hate on them for making those changes. It's like the whole point of what you're trying to put out in the world is information about health.
Yes.
And that information about health changed for you personally.
Right.
And you were communicating that and people hated on you for it.
Right.
And I think that's kind of messed up. Like, again, I get it. Like I've had moments where I have felt like a real sort of intense, like personal connection with whatever my workout is, whatever my food is, or whatever my decision that I think is right. But I think that that's a constant thing we need to be working against, that the negative part of our ego that tells us that our decisions make us better than other people. We're all different. We all have different goals. We're coming from different places. We have different values. So it's just, for me, and we talked about this, like as being connectors and being communicators. That's all it is for me, is just communicating. It's learning and sharing what I'm learning with other people. Take it or leave it.
I'm with you, girl. It's sharing is the word that really is, for me, it's what it's like. We're just sharing, and not even saying like investigate this. We're putting this out. We do due diligence of like work in terms of investigating, learning, and like, here you go. But also, and I think it's just to be very empowered as an individual is like, take the information and then do your own research and do your own application and see like, so yeah, I'm with, again, I haven't seen that documentary and not just about the documentary. I think the thing about the documentary that what I'm hearing and what doesn't sit right with me is that it seems to make it that meat is the enemy. And obviously I know that we're not sitting here saying to not eat, like vegan is enemy. Like we don't have a fight. I certainly don't have a fucking dog in the fight. Like, there's no dog. The only thing in this
life is too short to hate people because they eat differently than you.
Oh my God.
Get over it. Get over it. There's so many other bigger problems in the world. Like, you eat less meat? Cool. I'll eat yours. Like, I'll eat your leftovers. It's fine. Let's all get along.
Let's get along and let's feel fucking great. Isn't that a better concept? Like, let's just all feel great and kick ass.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, can we pivot?
Totally. I love pivoting.
I want
agility.
to ask you about your work as a makeup artist. Because I'm fascinated. I mean, first of all, offline, let's talk eyebrows because I'm obsessed.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure.
But how did you get into that line of work?
It started in retail. At the time, living in Hawaii. Hawaii's home for me, and lived there for years and started working in retail at Neiman Marcus. And so what I discovered is that, yes, I'm very good at sales. I keep it real and I'm not annoying. But what I really discovered, I mean, annoying in the sense of salespeople who are like trying to like, that's obviously subjective. No, but like I really loved, and this wasn't my first go at it. I was always the girlfriend who got you ready for the event or something, But my favorite part of that job was literally when I got to put the makeup on the women that would come through. And then, so it started there, but it really didn't kick into full gear. When I say full gear, I mean full commitment until I moved from New York back to LA, to the South Bay where I live. Even when I moved at the time, it was such a big move for me after living in New York for years. I'm like, oh God, everything's so different. Yeah, I knew I could rely on makeup because I would do freelance work in retail at that time. I should probably note this too, jumping around. I was formally trained. I moved to Paris for about 6 months and went to an artistic academy for makeup out there. That was rad. Yeah. Christian Chauveau, super amazing. And so that really helped shape my eyes and the technical part. But the craft, I think, has always been within me because I've always been working with my hands, drawing, painting, making jewelry. But it would, just to kind of shorten the story, because it feels like it's such a long one, I dabbled from the time that I started to the time that I went to Paris. And then even after that, I would kind of go in and out of it. I had this whole other career passion that I loved, doing events and whatnot. But when I moved back to LA and it was like, okay, we got to make some money, do my thing, just, start, freelance, retail. I lined myself up with a brand that I felt very connected to at the time was Shuamura. It's not here anymore. It's a Japanese brand. It's amazing. And it worked so well, they started traveling me up and down the West Coast to do their events. I discovered in that I was like, I'm liking this. So maybe I'll start investing in my book, right? Portfolio. And because that's a whole thing that never really ends in your career. Mm-hmm. But I knew at the time, I was trained to where I could go and there's fashion and then there's celebrity. And I'm in the celebrity realm. I love fashion, and my school in Paris, I could have gone there. But for me, the biggest part that I loved about makeup was the connection. Mm. It was when you in the celebrity realm, it's more of you're working in these teams, the hairstylist, stylist, and we work together a lot. I just really appreciated that in addition to playing with color or whatnot. So anyways, I started building my book and just started, putting myself out there more. And, it's tough because freelance just in any career path, right? It's it's hard. I knew I was on the path because I was just following what I was feeling and it felt really good. Mm-hmm. And that's always been that's how I navigate through my life. I follow the feeling and listen to the inside, and that's actually very difficult. Mm-hmm. A lot of challenge with that, but it served me because it's still an active part of my career life, obviously. And I love it very much. I love the clients that I get to work with, but now I have this whole other career life that I love deeply as well. So
I'd like to ask, because as a fellow sort of hustler, freelancer that kind of literally creates my own work, and I love doing that.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile, or do you have to at all, the fact that you sort of have your hands in so many different jars, right? You have the podcast, you do coaching, you do this makeup work. How do you bring them together cohesively, or do you not? If someone, you're at a dinner party and they're like, what do you do? What the hell do you say?
I love that question because it's I think we're in a time now where it's becoming more acceptable to have more than one thing after your name, right? You can be more than one thing. And really, I think that we should in life, man, we're here with this one shot that we know of, that I know of, I don't know. And I want to experience as much as I can. And Marie Forleo is someone I really love. And I feel like she summed it up really easily for me, where she's a multi-passionate entrepreneur. Well, so am I. I'm great at makeup and I love it, but makeup is not the full expression of Roxanne. The podcast is more of the full expression, mindset, voice, and, framework and all that. But how I kind of manage it all, I'm actually, when you said it and you're like, oh, can we pivot? I started to say, I'm all about agility. Mm-hmm. I take this from training because I have to be very agile to be able to operate, and not just here's another piece to add to it. I'm not here to just do okay makeup or to put out an okay podcast. I fucking chase excellence. Mm-hmm. I want this shit to be, I want to bring my A game every single time, So the answer to that is, I think it helps that I'm an introvert, which means I demand, I make sure that I have enough time for myself to recover from mind, body, on all those levels. And that helps me be very on my A game when I'm in these spaces. But it is challenging at times. Honestly, even in the last 2 months, I have a weekly podcast, keeping it real. an episode has gone out on day 10 the last couple weeks. That bothers me as someone who's like chasing excellence, this whole thing. But the reason for that is not because I'm sitting down and watching TV and just chilling. It's because, you know, and this might sound very foofy or whatever the fuck, but like, no, I'm in, you know, Milan during fashion week, like doing my makeup and you know what I mean? Or I'm like, I'm here in New York on a podcast run for a week. And so it can get hard and stressful. But I think what really helps me is, as much as I am a lover of excellence and I chase it, I look at life from above, like bird's eye view. And I go, okay, what are you really doing here? You're not fucking up. You're not like sitting down and like just not caring. If I look at everything that I'm doing from up here, I'm upholding everything at a strong enough level that there's this overarching level of greatness that's happening from health, mindset, makeup is cool, like podcast is going, like. But yeah, sometimes in some ways, like this might take a little over here. Maybe I get a little less sleep over here because I gotta. So, you know, I don't believe in balance. I have zero, like the word.
What does it even mean? Yeah.
Well, it's very static to me, and life is not static. So
it's
the
like
word
homeostasis, which you don't really want to have. You kind of want to just always be.
I love
reaching
harmony
for something else. Yeah,
because harmony is in motion. And so are we. And so is life. But harmony, there's obviously a sense of balance in that. Like I mean, it just feels good when you say that. Balance is like, I'm bored. Harmony is like, where are we going? You know? So I think when I look at it from here, I'm like, rocks, like there is harmony happening. And this is, so it takes a lot of work. And I'm sure, like, can I turn that question back at you? Because you are doing a lot, woman.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I think we can maybe start to like wrap up, because I know you've been working for 12 hours today and we've been talking for 3. We're gonna obviously have to do part 2, 3, 4.
Seriously.
But also I'm getting up in a couple hours and doing one of my jobs, so I guess we gotta remember I'm going to Tampa first thing in the morning. Anyway.
Oh yeah.
Okay, but to kind of continue this part of it. So I had a really hard time actually with the whole, like, you're at a stupid dinner party and someone asks what you do, because of course that's what people do and you have to say something.
Right.
And so I always used to say, like, just I'm a writer, because that's what I love the most, and it's also a big part of what I do. And it's just easy, right? Because I'm like, oh, I like, you know, I'm the podcast host, and I'm like, that's not a job. And anyway, like, it's a whole thing, right? So I just felt like I could say I'm a writer, and I could say that's what I did, and it was easy enough. I'm sort of with you. Like, I like the idea of, for somebody who I always considered myself to be very type A and to like to have things sorted out and be in control. And after school, I went straight into a very like corporate job that I left in like the middle of the economic downturn in 2009 to go be a writer like an idiot. And it's worked out very well for me. That's when I started the freelance. Right?
When I got
like,
super
hey,
serious.
When you're gonna,
gas is $5 a gallon, we're good. Let's do
There you go. If you're going to jump off the cliff, do it during a storm. Like, why not? But, you know, and of course I don't regret it, but I think that one of the things that's becoming more and more important to me, and it's funny because you talked about like your balance of masculine and feminine, and I struggle with this a little bit because I've struggled in the past with feeling like I don't identify with a lot of my girlfriends, because I felt like the things that I liked and the way that I communicated and the way that I moved through the world was a lot more masculine. And I don't consider myself a masculine person. Again, these things are so fuzzy and gray and hard to explain. Yeah. But I think that one of the things that's really becoming more and more important to me as I become more comfortable with being in my feminine side and being okay with that, and not thinking like that means I'm weak and soft. Because what a fucked up way to think that I'm like, if I own my femininity, that means that I'm kind of like the softer, weaker side of myself. I hate that. I hate feeling that way, and I'm getting over it. All that to say, one of the things that I'm working on in my professional and personal career that has been really, really life-changing and beneficial to me is putting more emphasis and caring on the connections that I'm making in work and in life. Yeah. And to me, before, maybe that would have been like sort of the cornier part. It's like, oh, like, you know, caring about relationships and deep connection. Like, that sounds like some weird frou-frou shit that like people talk about in yoga. I'm not into that. Like, that's literally where I was coming from, which again isn't problematic, right? But that's where I was coming from, because I'm more like, action-oriented goals, like yes or no, let's go do it. Like, I'm not about like these softer kind of skills necessarily. Yes, exactly. And I'm really kind of softening into that a little bit more. And one of the ways that I'm doing that is, first of all, amazing conversations like this. But one of the things that I've really started to do with my career, it started out as something that was just kind of fun, and now I'm adding it to sort of my repertoire and my brand, are these events that I'm doing, which we were talking about.
Human Potential Party. Yeah.
My Human Potential Party. It's cool, right?
Yes.
I don't know where it came from.
I can't wait to go.
The deepest recess of my brain. I do one like in LA, so maybe we can
figure
something out.
100%.
But really, it was born from the fact that I am in this world, the health and wellness and fitness community, that is really full of very, very enthusiastic, educated, interesting people who love to learn. But we do not connect one-on-one and in real life as much as we should. And it's a generalization, but look, we're all on Instagram. We all know everybody. We're all listening to the same podcasts, reading the same books, reading the same articles. We're all super educated. But are we getting together and talking like this?
Yeah.
No, because we're all fucking tired and we're busy and we'd rather stay home in our pajamas and like work on our computers. Like, we're all like that.
Yeah.
But we all also know that when we have these opportunities, these targeted opportunities with like-minded, interested individuals, we are better for it and we feel better.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do, and because I also know I go to all of these like health conferences and the Paleo FX and the Bulletproof conferences and all these things. I'm sure you do these in your industry.
No, well, in my industry, I haven't really tapped into that yet. Yeah.
Well, the thing about them, there's lots of benefits to them, but these big events, like, there's a lot of cons. There's the fact that they're expensive. You probably have to travel across the world and get a hotel and go to this, pay $700 to go to this thing, and there's 10,000 people there, and you're trying to walk through the expo floor and meet every single person, and you're trying to go to every single talk. And it's good to have these events that bring people together, but they tend to be more of a quantity over quality kind of situation. And I've been to enough of them and felt so wiped out from them that I thought there has to be a better way to get what we're hoping to get from these events. And what I tried to do is create something that's a lot smaller and more intimate, but still has all of those major components. So the events that I'm doing, I'm having them all in different cities, and they'll be smaller. So they're like a 30 to 50 person kind of event. And I have, in the different locations, I'll have speakers or a panel or one speaker or two speakers talking about, maybe it's functional medicine, maybe it's nutrition, maybe it's, I don't know, like name your flavor. And I'll put together like a goodie bag of like healthy treats or things I want people to try. And it's either at like a restaurant or a venue that has something to offer in the health and wellness space. And so people get together and they learn from somebody smart, and they get to actually ask the person and talk to them and maybe shake their hand.
So rad.
They get to eat some healthy food, and they get to network and connect with people in their neighborhood. They didn't have to go anywhere. It's in their city. And meet and make connections and make friends. And then they get to be home in bed by 10 o'clock, which is what we all want.
Truly.
Right? But every single event I've been doing it for a couple of years. I've only had a few. I've had 3 like official ones. I had one in New York with Ralph, your boy, your new friend. Gabrielle, incredible. The fact that they, lent their time to this event. So I had one in New York that was super successful. I had one in Toronto. I just had one in Seattle. And every single event that I did, I have made a friend, like a legit friend. I'm like, you're my friend now. I've made business connections. I've connected other people together.
That's amazing, Ashleigh.
It makes me feel so good. And it's on a small scale, and I've reconciled again I've wrestled with my ego to know that that's okay. I don't have to have an event with 2,000 people, and I don't have to have 1 million people know what I'm doing.
Right.
If I can have these events where I can make friends and other people can make friends and they can learn something and feel better, and feel like they connected with somebody and felt like they are better off for the experience that they had, like,
there's a lot of impact in that, girl.
What else?
That's amazing. People, I think obviously, and there's value in the bigger things, but like, it doesn't have to be that. And if anything, it's like you said, there's also cons to that too. Like, you're creating a very healthy, intimate space. Listen, a lot of the reason why I haven't gone to those things yet is because, honestly, girl, I don't really want to be around all those not all the people, like kinds of people, like just all people.
Because manic energy, it's manic.
Yeah, like I'm very sensitive to energy, and I'm not uncomfortable in crowds or whatever. But like, if I'm going to go out of my way and spend all this money, like, do I really? it could be very draining. Whereas like the intimate setting where you're going to extract the nutrients that you want, you know, but if anything, like oftentimes you can get even more because it's this intimate space. And I don't think it's just, you know, the size, it's more about like the quality. Like you're obviously going to get people who are really interested in showing up. And I think there's something to say even about that, right? And so I think this is amazing work that you're doing. I want to and will be supporting you. Yeah.
California 2020.
Yes, girl, I'm in it. I'm going to start doing live podcasts. So that's different, but yeah, you know, the concept is, it's similar, but it's the intention is similar where it's like, okay, look, like I throw parties for a living, you know, like fun, nice, high quality events. And, you know, I don't really go out much these days, partly too, because my work, I'm always on, right? And on doesn't mean, obviously it's all authentic, but like, I mean, it's just, I'm on, like I'm talking and I'm present and so makeup, it's like, it's exhausting, you know, podcasting, I love it. But like, listen, we're going to sleep fucking hopefully really good tonight. Cause like we've been talking, right? But but that doesn't mean that I don't want to get out and socialize and be around, you know, people and meet new people and be interested. So I love the idea of creating a live event where, you know, we'll have the podcast happening and people can come sit down and listen to the expert and obviously engage and meet and connect, you know, and it's almost like selfish because I'm like, I just want some fun stuff to do where I'm not a big drinker. Like I might have an organic glass of wine and no, like, you know, there'll most likely be some wine there for people. But just to say like, I'm not the girl who's intrigued to go to the bar because I'd rather wake up, because I wake up early anyways, at 5 a.m. and like sit by my candle and meditate and journal and then go train and I feel good. But that I'd still want some nice, so I love how you said, well, like we're in bed by 10 o'clock. So I love that. Yeah. So there needs to be more things like this happening, I think, because for so many reasons that we just tapped into. So I'm excited for you. And I want to add something to this because we're new friends, right? And Gabrielle knew again, like she's so badass.
It was immediate. Literally, I said, I walked up to you at Hue Kitchen. I mean, of course we were sort of Instagram friends. So it's obviously like, I knew kind of like your vibe and what you were into, but I saw you standing in front of like, I don't know, the chocolates at Hue Kitchen, just like, buff and like power posing, and I'm like, yep, that's my girl. There she is. I found her.
It's so amazing.
I just love it. I love it. I love that. I mean, and again, like talking about the connection thing, like Gabrielle was a speaker at one of my events. I barely knew her. She volunteered her time. We've become great friends. Since then, she has introduced me to at least a dozen incredible women whom I've been able to be friends with, interview, learn from, talk to. You're one of those women. Like if that hadn't happened, like this is all a steamroll event. If I hadn't decided I'm going to have these parties, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to do it. My first real one that I launched was in New York, and like 60 people came on, it was January.
That's incredible.
It was January 31st last year. I don't know if you remember the cold snap that hit the entire eastern seaboard last winter. It was like minus 20 here the day of the party. Like they were putting out like, because of course I'm from Canada, so I'm like, whatever, it's winter. But like everyone here was like, can we leave our houses? Like, are we all going to die? I'm like, please come to this party still. Amazing turnout. It was incredible. But again, like that, if I hadn't decided to do that, Gabrielle wouldn't have been there. If we hadn't become friends, I wouldn't have met you. Like all of these things, like they happen because you put yourself out there and you put yourself in this headspace where you're open to new things and new people and new experiences, and that's how it happens.
That is so, there's so much to say about that, but I'm going to be considerate of the fact that you're taking a flight early in the morning. But just to take the, because it takes a lot to put yourself out there, right? And that is something that you are constantly doing, you know, in your work. To do an event and, you know, to ask people to come and the weather and all that takes a lot of guts. You know, so I'm like applauding you for moving towards the fight, you know, for being someone who's willing to, I mean, I don't know if it was uncomfortable or not, but there's challenge, there had to have been, even just saying the weather or whatnot. But like, I'm so happy that you did that too, obviously. And then Gabrielle, and, you know, and one thing that I'll also add to that is I love the woman just it takes a very confident woman to be so supportive, right off the bat, like straight up. When I asked Gabrielle, like I didn't know her. I just knew her through different podcasts. And I was like, oh my God, this woman, I need to have her.
Yeah.
Hit her up on DM. And I was like, I would love to have you on my podcast. And she was like, right away. I love supporting women. Like she's and that's confidence. That's alpha. Mm-hmm. That's true alpha. So, oh my gosh, again, mad love to Gabrielle. And I do want to add this, just learning more about you, listening to your podcast. And I'm just so proud of you. And I know that I am a very sensitive woman. This is like my feminine, I sit deep in this shit, but it makes me strong actually at the same time. But, I love it because I see a fighter in you and it takes a lot of work. And, you're not a celebrity. You're not this like super high profile Instagram person. It's harder when you're this person and then you're launching this event and you're podcasting and, it's hard. It's hard. And I understand that, but you put out amazing content, girl. Your shit. You walk people into really not just intelligent conversations, but like very entertaining conversations, which is great because then you're talking about smart stuff and you're able to actually, retain the information more. There's so much more that I'm so excited to even learn about you and what you're doing.
That's what part 2 is going to be about, baby.
Seriously.
But I appreciate what you're saying too, because there's an art to in the world where there's so much social media and so much distraction and so much sexy, flashy stuff. You have to know your stuff, but you also have to know how to get it out there. Like you said, there is an entertainment component because you can be as smart as you want. And if you're boring, nobody gives a shit, unfortunately. Yeah. So you really have to be able to combine all of that. But I appreciate what you're saying. And I thank you so much for, first of all, like even hanging out with me tonight. I feel glad that we have connected in real life. Like I just know
it was a point of alignment. Like this trip was, I knew I had to take it. You were like, oh, I knew it was it's
going to be the start of a beautiful friendship. But I think it's nice to end on the concept of alpha females being people who are supportive and comfortable in who they are and able to help other people. And that goes for men and women, alpha everybody.
100%.
But there's also there's a bit of a selfish component to it too, because it feels good to me
100%.
To help other people and to connect other people. And, when I can do something that makes your life better or somebody else's life better, that makes me feel really good. Yeah. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting something good out of doing something good for other people too, right? So I think it's not all one or the other. You don't have to be a martyr. You don't have to be completely altruistic. You can if you want to help other people and you have a genuine desire to do that, it's okay to want to help yourself too. Like that's what being a hustler is all about, I guess.
Yeah, baby.
I love it.
Knuckles.
Okay, next episode though, you and me imagining walkout songs of our favorite celebrities. Done. And everybody go look up Fist City. I will. Loretta Lynn.
Yes. Okay, so all of the show notes will have all information, but shout out to your Instagram and
okay, so and we'll be posting this. I guess we should note too, this is kind of like a fun joint podcast. It'll go on both of ours. I love this. All of our communities will get to hear this very free-flowing conversation, but you can find me. The best way to do it is Instagram at The Muscle Maven. That's where I am on social media and online, and I'm very responsive there. And I also have a website that tells just a little bit more about what I do and what I'm up to and my party, upcoming events. All of that's on there. And that's just my name, AshleighVanHouten.com. And no one can probably spell that, so we can put it in the show notes.
No, for sure.
I'm sure you get this too. No one can say or pronounce your
Saffaie,
last name. Yeah, it's a tough one.
Well, people just call me Roxy usually, even though I am Roxanne Saffaie. But hey, I do want to point something else out. You have a rad newsletter. So I love it. You can
sign up for that on my website for free. I give you one newsletter a week because frankly, I don't have any more time to harass you than just the one newsletter. But I actually do love that, and because it's so much fun. And actually, Gabrielle, I think, encouraged me to do it. But it's again, communicators. It's so much fun for me. It's just another way for me to tell you all the things I'm so excited about. You can see me now. I'm bursting with excitement about everything. Can't wait till you read my next newsletter. I've got so much stuff for you to read.
No, it's true, and I love and it's I know that a lot of emails are it's hard these days. Reading is
a lot of shit.
We have a lot of shit, but I love your newsletter. I'm starting something really fun. I don't even call it a newsletter though. It's love letters. Because
so nice.
Well, starting January 2020, because I really want to extend further communication. I don't want to, just be, I'm the same as you. I want to keep it simple. I want to keep it short. I understand that nobody has time, it's hard to even get to a text message sometimes because I very much, and we'll get into this in the next podcast, my morning routine is it's not even a routine, it's a ritual, and it's so important to me. And I really love the idea of like, priming your mind to set the tone for your day. So starting January 2020, my email subscribers will be getting one email a week from me that is a little love letter, and you can literally read it in less than 2 minutes. But it will serve you some empowerment in the mind so that you can just queen up and move through your day, feeling really good. So I'm really excited about that because that feels like, yes, this is me. I love that. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Everybody can benefit from a love letter. So, right?
Exactly.
Who doesn't want a love letter?
Exactly.
It's perfect.
Yeah. And so Instagram for me is Roxy Look, RXYLOOK. And then I also have my brand, Black Belt Beauty. I'm active on both. Definitely more Roxy Look, but yeah, they're both out there. And then podcast, obviously, for your listeners.
It's late, dude.
Dude, I'm short-circuiting, but I'm so high though. Black Belt Beauty Radio on all platforms of podcasts. So, girl, thank you so much. This is so much fun. You're fucking awesome. We might have to
do this super on the reg.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
I know.
People are like, we're gonna have to listen to them. We're gonna have to listen to them super excitedly chat for 2 hours once a week now. Is this my life? Yes, it is, listeners.
It is.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. We
warned you. Yeah, no, thank you, girl. All right, so it's time to eat a little bit more chocolate.
Yep.
And then hit the bed.
Yep.
Bye, you guys.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode, you guys. If you loved it, please share it on your social. Throw it up on your Instagram stories and tag me. I'm at Black Belt Beauty. I am also at Roxy Look, ROXYLOOK. I love connecting with you guys. This is a conversation that I want to just continue growing with you guys. So if you feel inspired to hit me up, do so in that space. I always enjoy hearing from you. If you'd like to support this podcast, you can do so by rating it and reviewing it via iTunes. It's such supportive help, you guys. It really helps the visibility of this podcast. So I appreciate and thank you in advance for doing that. And last but not least, if you are interested in starting your own podcast, or perhaps you already have one and you need help with, editing your audio and the production of it, I cannot recommend my producers enough. Resonate Recordings, you guys, they are the bomb. I rely on them. They are an absolute supportive tool to me and my podcast. So check them out and let them know that Black Belt Beauty sent you. And on that note, you guys, I'm signing off with all my love and always looking forward to catching you on the next.